Shown.
Yes.
Mayor Pierce.
Yes.
Resolution number 6, adopting the City of Watertown flag policy.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Sounds like there ought to be some, doesn't it?
It seems that way, yes.
Wait a minute.
I-
5, all right.
This is a very interesting thing that is on the face of it very simple. What should the city of Watertown, as an official municipal agency, display as a flag? What is it that we support? As a governmental agency, we support the citizens of Watertown, all of whom are represented in the United States flag, all of whom are reflected in the New York State flag, and the POW MIA flag is certainly something reasonable to fly in honor of our veterans lost or found. This was not an attempt to divide. This was an attempt to unite. I understand that there are a lot of groups that have established their own identity or like to associate with other members within their group. That I can understand. But is that something that the city of Watertown, as a government, should be supporting? I am happy to party with anybody who wants to put up a flag on their own private land and celebrate their heritage. And I think you will find that the council would be happy to celebrate various groups here in town, even if we don't run your flag up the flagpole. I think you would also find that there are many other churches or other social organizations that would be happy to host a celebration. So this wasn't meant to be something that would close people out. It was meant to celebrate everybody as a citizen of the city by officially flying the United States, New York State, and POW MIA flag. Now, I understand it's gone on for a while that we've been putting up flags of one or another group. But the risk to the city is that somebody says, well, why can't I fly my flag? And we say, well, you don't seem to meet our criteria. And then a lawsuit is begun, and eventually they get to fly their flag. And so I see dangers in trying to let the 5 of us, or the one person who is mayor, decide who is fit to fly a flag. That's the reason for this. None of us, I'm sure, want to offend anybody. We want to be an inclusive city who welcomes everybody, and I certainly welcome everybody. That's how this came about, and I will turn the mic over to anybody else who wants to talk.
Yes, I do have something to say. I presented right immediately afterwards. Mr. Wagner had called me on Friday and let me know this resolution was going to go up. And I was a little taken back. I wasn't sure why. And I've come to understand more about why. You know, somebody wants to put a flag up and it would ruffle somebody else's feathers. We have 2 conflicts in the world right now between Ukraine and Russia, and also with Israel and Palestine. Now, Palestine, I don't believe, is a country yet. So I don't know if they have a flag. You're shaking your head no. Okay, so would they ask, somebody said, well, would you put up Palestine's flag? Well, there's a difference between Netanyahu and Hamas. In my opinion, there's a lot of subtleties and nuances in this discussion. So, but a lot of people don't understand, they take sides, and I get why we've come to this point. And so what I wanted to do was understand this as well as I could, to the degree I could. I'm not a lawyer, and I've given a copy of this to our lawyer, the city attorney. And it's the paper from the Boston versus Shurtleff. And the decision that was made as a result, and then was taken before the Supreme Court, and then they decided that Boston had violated this individual, as a Christian organization's rights to free speech by denying them that flag, and they overturned that lower court decision. But the difference between Boston and Watertown is that Boston had a policy that allowed everybody to apply for a permit and then raise a flag, and then they denied this particular organization. All right, so they gave up what we call, I believe the term is, correct me if I'm wrong, the government speech doctrine. And as a city, we have denied, I believe, some people in the city before putting a flag up. So we do not, in my opinion, please correct me, come under this particular ruling by the Supreme Court in the city to have to deny somebody putting his flag up. We can, because any flag you see in front of this building would be considered government speech. And by allowing the flag to be put up there would be basically us saying that we understand the organization that is the flag is being raised for, and we're okay with that. Now, this flag that we choose, whatever the flag happens to be, is based on our values as a community. And so when you look at the government speech doctrine, and then you look fundamentally at as Americans, we are all not the same, as I heard said earlier. And Fort Drum, Watertown gets that. And you can go on and look at some of the things that were said. I think that the conflict came in where we had the one flag that was being asked to be raised, and there was it's a difficult decision to make. And so what do? And so what I did was I proposed something that I wrote in, that what we would do in this case is we would have in this list of suggestions, I said, official flags and sensitivity to global conflicts. Mandate the display of official flags representing the United States, the state of New York, POW, MIA recognition, and any officially designated flags of the city of Watertown, okay? But then, the caveat is this: because of these conflicts in the world and the polarization that they're causing, we would exercise caution regarding flags from countries involved in active wars or conflicts, excluding them from display on city buildings until such conflicts are resolved, by excluding flags associated with hate and violence and exercising caution regarding flags from countries involved in conflict. The policy aims to mitigate potential sources of polarization, division, and controversy in our community. Now, since we've already established that we have this government speech doctrine, I think we're within our right to say, in that case, because of these conflicts in the world between these countries, that we could deny or allow, depending on what we decided, to allow that flag to be hoisted. And it's a very touchy subject, because I wrote something, I just want to, if I may, read this. While the proposed resolution to mandate the exclusive display of certain flags at our city, all city buildings, may stem from a desire to promote unity and patriotism, it is imperative to consider the broader implications of such a policy. As citizens of a nation founded on the principles of liberty, equality, and free expression, we must tread carefully to ensure that our actions do not inadvertently curtail these fundamental rights. Limiting the display of flags to a certain select few undermines the principle of free speech. The United States Constitution guarantees the right of freedom of expression, including the freedom to display symbols that hold personal and cultural significance. By restricting the flags that can be flown on city buildings, we risk stifling the diverse voices and perspectives within our community. Moreover, the proposed ban on national and novelty flags runs counter to the need to promote diversity and inclusivity. America is a melting pot of cultures, beliefs, identities, and our strength lies in our ability to embrace and celebrate this diversity. By prohibiting the display of flags that represent different nations, cultures, or causes. We send a message that only certain identities are valued or welcome in our community. It is essential to remember that the United States was founded on the principles that all men and women are created equal. Our nation is not a nationalist in nature, rather it is a beacon of freedom and opportunity. And while the intent behind the proposed solution may be well-meaning, its implementation would risk limiting free speech and undermining the principles of diversity and inclusivity that define our nation and our community. Instead of imposing restrictions, let us uphold the values upon which this country was built by fostering an environment where all voices are heard and respected. And that's what I believe that we should do. I think what I'd like to do is table this resolution until we have an opportunity to talk about it more, where the community can actually weigh in better. And I would welcome a resolution to table this at this time.
Okay, is there a second to table the resolution?
Well, I wanted to
Yes, please.
say
Or,
something
I'm sorry,
too,
go
but
ahead.
because you tabled it, I know, or you, no, but you
Well, I
made a
haven't-
motion to that.
Well,
it-
I withdraw the motion and I'll wait until
Okay.
others are heard, so, thank you.
I think because normally, Mayor, your position approves all the flag requests, and that's how it's been in the past. And I think that, I think to be fair, that the ones that have already been given their approval for this year, that we should allow that to happen. I think because this is happening so fast, but I think those who've already been granted approval, then let them move forward, and then still come up with whether we decide that this is the policy or not. I think the fact that they've already been approved, I really feel like we're obligated to do it, and maybe make it, as somebody said in the audience, make it effective January 1. You know, I think just to be able to allow those who've already been approved and already spent marketing dollars on the event, on the events, because there's 3 at least, I think that probably have been approved. So I think that that would be the right thing to do, and then whether we decide January 1, we don't do it anymore, but I think at least honor those who have already been given the approval.
Anybody else?
As far as I go, I've been extremely consistent in my disapproval for flying non-governmental flags on city property or any other government property. I don't think that government in itself has a place in any special interest, acceptance or non-acceptance. You can do whatever you like in your personal life as long as it's within the limits of the law. And I believe that our U.S. flag does represent everybody that's in this room tonight, and I'm proud of that. There is not a single day that you drive by my house and you won't see a U.S. flag flying. But I'm also not restricted from flying any other flag that I would like at my own property. And that's what makes this country so special. If you want 3 flags at your house, by all means, put all 3 up. You could have more. And there's nobody telling you that you can't do that. So I would like city property, government property to be a place where you know that no one group is getting preferential treatment and no one group is being restricted. And my issue was, you know, having the ability to accept one flag or one group and then having the ability to restrict another one sets us up for failure. It really does. It opens us up to many issues that we shouldn't even be involved in. Ours should be to represent the people as a whole, and we do have a flag for that. That is the United States flag. And it's been years, I'll stand by this every single time. The Constitution represents everybody, and so does the United States flag.
Mayor, we are not restricted as a city to have government speech or to determine, from what I understand from this reading, from the finding of the Supreme Court on that case in Boston.
Can I interrupt for
Because-
1 second,
please,
which I
yeah.
think this would clear things up? If we could have our city attorney weigh in on this, because I think she knows a bit about
Yeah, I think she would.
the topic.
Okay. So, there is a government speech doctrine which says that the government, speaks for itself. It doesn't have to allow, free speech when it's the government speaking. So the question is whether the flagpoles in front of City Hall are government speech. And the court in the Boston case said it is government speech, which means, we don't have to allow flags of other countries, of interest groups, of other causes. The government can allow that, but know that when you're doing so, you're speaking as a government in support of that thing, and that's why it becomes so important to not discriminate. To answer the question of the privilege of the floor, if it becomes that is the risk of allowing speech on the flagpoles, because you have to be careful to not discriminate. You would have to have very clear criteria. Councilman Olney, I know you sent an email. I would have to examine your proposal a lot closer to determine if the criteria were appropriate to avoid an issue there. But in the manner that it's presented here, which is just to display government flags, this, in my opinion, would be a lawful approach. Now, again, you can allow it. It's just you need to just be careful in the way that you do. There are other public forums where there is the right to free speech, of course, throughout the city. The distinction is whether the speech is the government speaking. It's not that government property is the deciding factor. It's a little more nuanced than that. The flagpole's been found typically to be government speech. But someone could have a festival in a city park, and there would be a free speech right to that, because that's the organization speaking, not the government speaking. But it's public property, so if someone wanted to have a parade or a festival or another type of flag on other parts of government property, that would be permitted. Does that answer some of your questions?
Yes, I just would add that I agree, understand what you're saying. But my interpretation was of this, and also it refers to Walker and Tam, as far as that goes, the other suits that were brought. We have the right to restrict it as a city as long as we're embracing it as government speech. We also have the right to not allow any other flags to be flown if that's what we chose. So actually, we have either choice, don't we? To
There's a
either
way,
allow it or
I
not
think
to.
there's a way to do it lawfully either way, right? It's really yes.
Right, so we can select what flags we want to allow to be embraced, so to speak, as government speech. For instance, the Italian, the Irish, whatever flag we choose out there. But were the KKK to come to us and say, we'd like to put a flag up, we can say no.
It's
Because
not
I'm not
an,
embracing their speech as my speech or as the government speech.
therein lies the risk, though, right? So
Right.
you can't do so. The government cannot prohibit speech based on the message. So.
No, you can, yeah, no, but,
So,
yeah.
the criteria would have to be very carefully laid out. I think, the city's been trying to do, a very reasoned analysis where, in the past, in terms of what it was allowing and not allowing, but I'm not sure that there's a written policy about it. No?
I don't believe so.
Right. So the wiser approach, if the government wants to allow the flagpoles to be used to convey a message, there should be some sort of criteria by which you apply that, and it should be very carefully tailored so not to discriminate. The problem in Boston was all the flags were allowed until the Christian organization came along, and then that was not allowed, and that was a freedom of,
That opened that up.
that
for
was
the,
a problem, right.
For them to overturn it, because they allowed everybody that applied to,
Mm-hmm.
basically, until that one organization, which was religious in nature. And I think they referred to the clause. The clause that prevents, well, it keeps separation of church and state from religious type things to be displayed.
You mean the Establishment Clause?
Yeah.
So, yeah, under the First Amendment, there's the freedom of religion. And then the
Exactly.
establishment
Thank
clause
you.
that says that you know,
My concern, if I might say this, over on the mayor's blog, about this particular subject, there's a lot of comments being made, and if you go over there, you can witness what's being said and what, some people are celebrating this decision we're gonna make tonight, or what we may make, or
Can
may
I interrupt
table.
real quick?
Please, yes.
Not just for people, because I know there's probably a lot of people here who might not follow the mayor's blog. It's not this mayor's blog. I don't
I'm
have a
sorry.
blog.
I
It's not-
apologize. Let me
It's not my
qualify.
blog, former Jeff Graham's blog.
Thank you for that, yes,
And-
former Mayor Graham's blog.
And why is his blog pertinent to this discussion, might I
It's
ask?
pertinent because of the intent of what this will mean to the community and for those people who are opposed to the gay community and the comments that are made, and they're celebrating us denying the gay community to be able to raise a flag, Councilman, all right? That's why it's relevant.
Councilman,
That's why it's pertinent.
I prefer to not take your interpretation of some random comments on somebody else's blog as something that's a fact that I should make a decision on.
Well,
So,
Okay.
so,
First of all, this is a subjective topic that we're talking about, and the way we choose the flag to go up is subjective, not just objective.
and that's the whole problem, is that whether it's the mayor who chooses, or whether it's the five of us on the council who choose, we put some spin on every application to fly a flag. Is it somebody I know? Is it somebody I like? Do I like their politics? All of this could come into effect, and that's where we run the risk that we will cause a rift that we didn't intend, or that we will cause a lawsuit that we didn't intend. And I'm happy to celebrate anybody's heritage with them,
Sure, you said that.
but that doesn't mean I need to run their flag up the city flagpole to do that.
My concern is that we're going to stifle some voices in the community because of some bullying and the problem is that what we do, the answer is, let's legislate to the lowest common denominator among us and pass that kind of law so that all of the others that were abiding by the law and understand the rules can't have their say, can't put their flag up, can't have, have their representation. I wish we lived in a world that did not need flags of diversity. I wish we did. But unfortunately, some people still need to be reminded of the diversity that we have, and that's what makes up this country. If we lived in that kind of world, I would say, fine, we wouldn't need the Voters' Rights Act. We wouldn't need affirmative action, but we still do. And so what I'm saying is that I think what we should do is table this, and I would make a resolution to table it for a future date, and then have some more discussion. That's what I think should be done.
Ms. Smith, did you say that if it was in a public park, that might be different?
yes.
So, and we have several public parks around the city. I mean, we have Thompson Park, there is a flagpole up there. So would that run the same risk versus in front of City Hall, or would that be different?
You know, you'd have to, the example I was giving was not necessarily about a flagpole in the park. It was the use of the park to engage in speech, whether that's to host a festival, have a ceremony. Generally, that's where free speech comes in. The issue becomes if the form of speech is construed as government speech, which it's easier to see that when it's sitting in front of City Hall. It goes a little further from the line in the park. I don't want to say definitively here, sitting here, that the flagpole in Thompson Park is fair game, it's less of a clear answer on that.
So
My
you
point was,
probably-
my point was simply that if this resolution were to pass and you didn't have a particular flag raising at City Hall, there are other opportunities in the city, even on public property, to convey a message.
Well, from my perspective, I'll say, and I think a lot of people are aware, obviously, that things have become much more controversial across the globe, in the United States. Things that weren't considered controversial once are now considered to be so. We saw an example of that with the Ukrainian flag that was in the Massey Street Island, which we received complaints about. And I think that without a flag policy, and without a flag policy that basically eliminates the factor of picking and choosing who gets to fly their flags and who doesn't, it opens us up to a lot of legal challenges. We had this same discussion 2 years ago when we talked about putting the third flagpole in front of City Hall, and I, at that time, voiced the same concerns about putting a third flagpole up and then opening us up to legal issues. So we had the situation in Boston. You have New York State, who currently, I don't know when it was, I think it was within the past 6 months or so, adopted a flag policy. Maybe you know, Kristen, adopted a flag policy similar to this, where they'll only be flying the US flag and the state flag.
I actually don't, I don't know, I didn't
I
look
think
into
it was
that. I
within
think
the
there's other-
past year, but
yeah.
what you're seeing is you're seeing a trend of municipalities, cities, towns, villages, the state, moving to this sort of policy, because at the bottom line, the American flag represents everybody. At the beginning of our meeting, we said, one nation under God. That's one nation, we are all represented by that flag. And I think there are other ways too, should this be approved, that the city and city council can certainly be supportive of these different causes. I know, for example, the Italian American Club, they no longer raise their flag in front of City Hall. They raise their flag on Columbus Day in front of the club, and I think most of us went to that event last year, and we spoke at that event, showed our support. So there's certainly opportunities for the city council to show their support for causes, whether it's through a proclamation, attending events, speaking, et cetera, to be part of those events and to continue to celebrate those causes, the heritage of different members of our community. There are ways to do that without raising the flag, because again, I think that if we get into the position of deciding, okay, this flag is okay to raise, this flag is not, we really open up a can of worms. And the easiest way and the cleanest way is to ensure that we are representing everybody in the community, because we are one community and we are all represented by the American flag.
So the 3 flag raisings, I think you've already signed off on, right? Which is Juneteenth and Pride and the Israel flag. I just personally, I don't have a problem supporting this resolution if it was effective January 1. I think because they've already been approved, that we should at least honor that and not renege on that.
And what would you propose we do from now until January 1 with additional flag requests?
The only other one that we normally will get is the Germany one. So, you know, if you want to make this effective after the dates of these 3 that have already been approved, I just don't think that it's fair to them to have been told they can do it, and they have it signed off, and they already have their plans for events for this. I just think that in fairness to them, to let them continue and then either make this effective after that, maybe July 1 or October, whatever. But I just think that we should at least allow the ones that have been approved and signed off on to continue.
Can I jump in? I mean, you mentioned a date. The resolution could be amended just to state that it applies prospectively to future applications, and that it doesn't apply to those applications already granted. It's just another, instead of doing it by date.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion to do that?
Sure, I make a motion to amend this to, trying to think how you worded that.
To apply prospectively to future applications.
There you go. Thank you.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? No discussion? Call the question?
Councilmember Kimball?
Yes.
Councilmember Only?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruggiero?
Yes.
Councilmember Schoen?
No.
Mayor Pierce?
Yes.
So now we've amended it.
Now we've amended it. Now we have to vote on the amended resolution. Any discussion?
Yes, I have some. This is a dangerous slope that we're going on right now with this banning of flag raising, okay? It's like banning books, burning books, the same thing, pretty much is what it is. So what we're saying is a few people complain, this city cowards. It's, well, yeah, we won't allow any more flags to be risen here other than the American flag, which always is, New York State flag, which always is, and hopefully soon a city flag, which should have been, and that was a purpose for the third flagpole. But no, we're going to give in to this pressure by somebody in the community, and I can tell you the comments that were made on Mayor Graham's blog, I'm sorry about that, it was not serious, were atrocious. They were egregious. They were insulting to anyone that's intelligent. That's what they were. They're bigoted and biased. And in this community, that group of people are cheering tonight that we're taking a vote to take away the opportunity for the pride community, or for the gay community, for other communities, for Juneteenth, for all of them to come and do what they've been doing. This has been a tradition in this city for a long time, and we're gonna set a precedent tonight to break with tradition in order to allow these bullies to coerce us into cowering to take a vote so that we don't have to be as mindful about the resolution that we're putting together. Instead of tabling this resolution tonight, to give it time for it to stew, for the public to come forward, to more thought to be put to it, and for a much more carefully plan to be come up with. I'm a no vote in the current form on this particular resolution. All right, that's what I gotta say. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion?
If I might, Mr. Olney, you can read any book you want. You can fly any flag you want. You can stand on a soapbox in your front yard and spout whatever you want to. I am not stopping you, and I'm not stopping anybody else.
That's right.
But as a representative of the city, my job is to protect the city, represent the citizens, and it is not, I think, my role as a city councilman to advocate for a particular flag or advocate against a particular flag to be flown on the city flagpole. I think it takes away from what we should be doing. In our private lives, we can do whatever we want. So,
I agree. Government speech, though, is important, and what this government of Watertown decides to do tonight, all right, is to stifle the speech of the groups that we've been supporting, have been advocating by putting their sign, their flag in the front of this building out front, and that sets a precedent that I believe that will resonate in this community for a long time, because we're going backwards instead of going forward, is my opinion. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
When we discuss, when we talk about government support for certain organizations or flags or whatever it may be, this April 18th, 2022, when I came to speak against us adding a third flagpole, I did a drive around to see what our council members and mayor's houses looked like, and to see whose flags, or who had flags and who did not. There were 2 of the 3 yes votes flying no flag at all at their house, where you have the greatest leeway in expression and nothing there. So to say that we need to shout it from government steps when we're not shouting it from our own house steps, I think is disingenuous.
I believe my patriotism is unquestionable as far as love for this country and this city and the way I feel about it. And because I don't fly a flag at my house doesn't mean a thing about what I believe. I'm a Christian. I believe in God and Jesus. I don't go around and wear it on my coat as a badge of honor, though. And I certainly pray in private, and I don't go to a church to make a spectacle of myself like some presidents do in order to show that they're religious, in order to get votes and garner votes. I take my patriotism in a private way, and I have every right to my opinion about what I think this vote tonight is going to mean, And I understand, and yes, you're correct. I don't fly a flag at my house, but I do believe in this country and what we've done throughout the history of this world. So, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Well, for the record, that was 2 years ago. I do have a flag. It does fly. Depends on the weather, depends on the condition, and it depends on whether the flag needs to be replaced or not. But to basically say on one instance that you went by people's houses 2 years ago, I think has no credence to this whatsoever. And I think that this is, with the amendment, I think that it's I feel it's a compromise between coming up with a policy, but also being fair to those who've already been approved. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on the resolution as amended? Call to question?
Councilmember Kimball?
Yes.
Councilmember Only?
No.
Councilmember Jerem?
Yes.
Councilmember Schoen?
Yes.
Mayor Pierce?
Yes.
Ordinance number 1,